Do you ever wonder why your Uber is so expensive? Over the past 10 weeks, my Uber passengers paid about $9,000 for 300 trips. That's about 3,000 miles. Uber paid me $4,000, but I made only $3,000 after about $1,000 in cost to my car. That's about $16 for every hour I was online. Basically, minimum wage. Uber says it kept $2,000 for itself. But Uber also listed an additional $2,000 for commercial auto insurance. And at that pace, for a full-time driver over the period of a year, that's about $20,000 a year for insurance. So why does Uber's commercial auto insurance cost so much? Hi, my name is Levi Spires, and this is the Tip You in the App Daily Drive podcast. Still here, still curious. Today's Daily Drive podcast is brought to you by the Gig You app. So in this podcast, I'll explain what commercial auto insurance is, why it costs so much, why reporters started calling me, and what I think should change. So why did reporters start calling me? Well, last year, I'm just trying to figure out how to make more money. I started doing some deep dive analysis into each and every single ride. I started publishing some videos about what I found. And one of the key findings was the variable rate of commercial auto insurance. That video and that work caught the eye of Professor Len Sherman at Columbia University. And he's been using my data and other data to make more detailed analysis of Uber's take rate, the commercial auto insurance, and just the overall industry. His work was seen by Fast Company, Business Insider, and a bunch of other publications. And those publications, specifically A More Perfect Union and Business Insider, reached out to me to produce some sort of background interview from a driver's perspective on commercial auto insurance and Uber's take rate. Now, I'm not an insurance expert. My goal is never to solve the commercial insurance problem. I'm just an Uber driver that has a unique set of skills.
But what I do have are a very particular set of skills. Skills I've acquired over a very long career.
That has a unique set of skills that can dive into data and create spreadsheets, and I can produce videos about what I've learned. I'm just the driver that kept the receipts. Okay, so how did I come up with the $20,000 a year for commercial auto insurance numbers? Now, I'm not complaining about my income, but like every human, I want to earn more. So that's what got me into diving into this data. So over the past 10 weeks, I took 305 Uber trips. The passengers paid $9,368. $3,950 in fare pay went to me. Approximately 3,160 active miles. That gave me $948 in active mile vehicle cost. That covers things like my fuel, like the electricity for my Tesla, estimated maintenance, and estimated depreciation on my car. So I earned $3,142 before tips, but also before I paid taxes, my deadhead miles, and other fixed costs like car washes, my insurance, etc. Uber kept $2,088 was assigned to this line item called insurance and operational cost. So that means I spent 66 cents per active mile. And if hypothetically, if I did 653 active miles in a week at 40 hours online, that's 32,000 active miles a year. And that gives me $21,580 at that same ratio for commercial auto insurance and other expenses. That's how I came up with the number, and I just rounded it to $20,000. And I think it's this gap, this take rate, that catches most people's eyes. Like, for example, this tweet had 33,000 views where a passenger paid $101 and I only got 37. For every $100 that a passenger paid over the last 10 weeks, $42 went to me before my expenses, $22 went to insurance and operational costs, $21 was kept by Uber, and then $14 went to taxes and fees and some other expenses. Uber assigned more money to insurance and operational costs than it kept for itself. So what is Uber's commercial auto insurance? Well, it's kind of broken down into 4 periods. Period 0 is when I'm driving my car and the Uber app is not on. Period 1 is when I'm in my car and I've turned the Uber app on. Period 2 is when I've accepted a ride and I'm on my way to go pick up a passenger. And period 3 is when a passenger is in my car. Now, thankfully, I've never had a claim after the 6.5 years of driving, but here's what I know the coverage is. $75,000, $150,000, and $25,000 in liability while I'm waiting coverage, $1.25 million during the prearranged trip, and $1.25 million in supplemental uninsured and underinsured coverage. No fault personal injury protection. Now, I'm not an insurance guy, and I don't know how that's all going to get paid out, but that's the coverage. So what do I actually get, though, as a driver? Well, there's liability primarily protects the passengers and third parties and Uber. But here's the big thing. There's a $2,500 physical property damage deductible, i.e., if there's $10,000 worth of damage to the car, the first $2,500 I have to pay out of pocket to cover. There's coverage limited to the vehicle's actual cash value, comprehensive and collision required on my personal policy. No Uber collision or comprehensive coverage while I'm online but waiting for a ride. There's no lost income during repairs. There's no rental costs. There's no depreciation of my vehicle costs. There is some negative equity costs. And there are potentially some medical and disability gaps. And speaking of protection, let me tell you about Red Tiger. Today's episode is sponsored by Red Tiger. When you drive for a living, a dash cam isn't really an accessory. It's a witness. I've completed more than 15,000 Uber trips, and most rides are completely uneventful. But when something does happen, a crash, a close call, or a disagreement about what actually took place, you don't want to depend on everyone remembering the moment the same way. That's why I use the Red Tiger F17 Elite dash camera. It records 3 views all the same time, 4K out the front of the vehicle, 2.5K out the rear camera, and 1080 inside the cabin. But I actually mount that 2.5K rear camera inside my car pointed toward the back seat. Because for a rideshare driver, what happens inside the vehicle is often what matters most. And because so much of my driving happens before sunrise or after dark, I especially appreciate having full color cabin footage at night in the car. The F17 Elite also has a built-in GPS, loop recording, impact detection, and fast Wi-Fi 6. So I can connect it to my phone and review or download footage without pulling out the memory card. A dash cam can't prevent an accident, and it can't stop someone from making an accusation, but it can preserve the facts. Use my link and discount code in the description or the pinned comment to get your Red Tiger F17 Elite dash camera today. Okay, now to the ride that started all of this. Last year on November 11th, I picked up somebody, got paid $9 to take them 7 miles from a hotel to the Syracuse airport, which is fine. And then I saw a $9.50 tip come in. And that's really odd. Like, it's pretty rare for somebody to tip me more than I got paid for the ride. So I opened the Uber app and I kind of started diving through it, and come to find out the passenger paid $47 for the ride. And I only got paid $9. They tipped $9. And that $47 was before their tip too, by the way. $23 went to commercial auto insurance and operational expenses. That didn't make any sense. But one ride doesn't necessarily mean anything. So I wanted to dive deeper. So like I said, last year, actually before that trip, I did an analysis of 159 trips from Ithaca to the Syracuse airport. They're almost the exact same trip. They're roughly 62 miles. And I wanted to basically discover how to make more money. So I wanted to look at one exact trip over and over and over again to kind of see if there's some sort of trends. And there wasn't any trends. In fact, it was really odd. Some passengers paid below $80, and some passengers after tips paid $250. There was no rhyme or reason or any way to get any type of trend data out of that. But one of the key things that I found in that research when I did that was that my commercial auto insurance for the exact same ride was sometimes right around $13, as little as that, and as much as $50. Now, this is the same car, same driver, same route, same miles. Everything was the same, yet the commercial auto insurance and operational expenses range from $13 to $50. And that led me to connect with Len Sherman at Columbia University. Now, Len's research is more on Uber as a whole, and he actually used some of my data, but he used a lot of other drivers' data to do a deeper analysis on Uber's take rate. But my one story of that Ithaca to Syracuse route was rich with data, and he used it as part of his bigger publication he just released a few weeks ago. He looked at 100 specific reserved Uber trips during that time period. So here's kind of what I found about it. That amount is an allocation that can include claims, litigation, and adjustments between earlier estimates and eventual costs. By removing this category before calculating its take, Uber can say it kept about 21%, even though insurance and operational costs represented another 22%. But that would be like me saying, well, I got 42%, but in reality, I had about 10% in cost also. So I'm only getting 30% of the fare for my gross profit before I pay for, again, the car washes and other fixed costs, my cell phone, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, Uber has a legitimate argument. First, insurance is really expensive. Uber says that it consumes 27% of the fares in New York outside of New York City, which is kind of a little bit more than actually what I've been paying. State required limits are extremely high. Fraud and stage accidents do happen here in the state of New York. Personal injury lawsuits, medical costs, expensive vehicle repairs. Uber says that U.S. insurance costs per trip rose more than 50% over a period of time. It's so bad in New York that this year, New York legislator did some reforms. So the governor and legislator acted in the FY 2027 budget. Fraud and stage accident reforms are going to happen. Serious injury and liability changes are going to happen. There's a greater oversight that's going to happen. And insurers are expected to incorporate savings into future pricing. If those reforms should happen, that means Uber's commercial auto insurance cost should decline. But it's even more complicated than that. If I were to go into my Uber app and look at my insurance carrier, it says Liberty Mutual is on the certificate. But we also know that Uber self-insures. It's called a captive insurance subsidiary. The company's name is Alika. It's out in Hawaii. There's an organization called Consumer Watchdog, and they have raised questions about how Uber uses Alika. And they do reinsurance arrangements, and they have $12.46 billion in reserves by the end of last year. And those reserves are estimated liabilities, not automatically profitability. And again, I don't know. I don't know anything about that. All I know is that commercial auto insurance is expensive. So here's what I think should happen. I think Uber should price the risk based upon the car and the driver and the driver's record. Uber knows me as a driver, probably better than myself. In fact, I've been driving with them for 6.5 years. I've done almost 16,000 trips. I've had 0 insurance claims with them. They also have access to a lot of other information. They've done background checks on me. They know my driving record, but they also have CMT driving scores. That is basically using my phone and some of the technology in my phone to track how I drive. And I have a pretty good CMT score. I drive really well. In fact, almost all of my passengers give me 5 stars. I earn a lot of money in tips. I'm a good driver. So I think a lot of drivers are asking for transparency. Len Sherman is asking for transparency. Reporters are asking for transparency. I think a lot of people are trying to say, Uber, show us the information. I kind of want to see it. I mean, it's interesting, but what I really want is if I'm a safe driver, my insurance rates for my passengers should be less. Now, this is a cost of the vehicle, and there's some of those other things. But again, I don't know how Uber is allocating it. And if the ride sometimes charges me $13 for commercial auto insurance and sometimes it's $50, it basically looks like when they get more money, they can just apply more money to commercial auto insurance, which has nothing to do with me as a driver. Now, let me be a little cynical here. I understand insurance. We need insurance. Insurance is important, and the marketplace depends on trust, especially insurance covering things when accidents do happen. But I don't think if New York State's reforms actually reduce Uber and Lyft or anybody else's insurance requirements, I don't think that's going to make me any more money as a driver. It might save passengers a little bit, but that assumes all other rideshare type of companies that are competing against each other are going to lower their rates and lower their prices. And I know that they know that passengers already accept the price of the ride. So if passengers have been paying $100 for that ride, and I've been accepting $30 or $40 for that ride, that's $60 gap. If the commercial auto insurance does decline as a cost and nobody else lowers their price, I think Uber just has a bigger margin, a bigger profitability. That's not going to be passed on to me. And in fact, there's a California example. Insurance allocations fell about 21% based upon some legislation and things they did in the state of California. Driver pay only rose about 1.2%. The platforms just increased their own fees. Now, maybe if there were more competitors, Waymo, Robotaxi, Zoox, taxis or whatever, Uber and Lyft or whoever else is having to pay for these higher commercial auto insurances might naturally let prices decline. Maybe I'm wrong, but I'm probably not. And that's why I'm cynical about it. So my goal is not to solve commercial auto insurance. Like I said, I'm just the driver that kind of fell into the data. And I hope that the right people, either at Uber, New York State, or whoever else, if they can solve this, it might at least lower prices for passengers and raise the fares paid to the drivers. Want to shout out to GigU and Red Tiger for sponsoring the Daily Drive podcast. Please subscribe to the Upfront Tip for exclusive content. It's delivered straight to your inbox every single Monday. Become a Thrive member here on the channel or join the free driver exclusive, driver only group on Facebook. And of course, you can connect with me anywhere. Drivers, I want you to be safe, healthy, and happy. And I want you to enjoy the ride. I want you to make as much money as possible. Hopefully, podcasts like this, these episodes might help a little bit. My name is Levi Spires. I'm cheering for you. I'm still here. Be well. Bye.